Hello Chess Neurites. It's fantastic to have you join us for another enriching session here at Chess Neurons. I hope you are all thriving and actively engaging with our Chess Neurons puzzles. In today's session, we'll be going deep into the fascinating topic of double bishops. When we talk about piece combination, the double bishops are most talked in chess literature, chess books, or anywhere you read. So you will notice this time and again, double bishops. So what makes this combination extremely dangerous for the opponent when we have it, and why is it that we should try to keep our double bishop advantage, or if our opponent has double bishop advantage, then we should try to get rid of that. What makes them so special? So the thing with double bishops is that they don't intersect with each other, they don't interfere with each other, unlike other piece combination. So let's say here white has the double bishop advantage. This bishop will cover the light squares, this bishop will cover the dark squares. So they will do their tasks without blocking the other bishop's access. So that's what something that makes them special. Of course, you see, bishops are long range pieces, so they'll be able to control more squares, more pressure. Yeah, those all things are there, definitely. But the fundamental thing is about, they both complement each other. They don't interfere or intersect, they're working. So now let's say, just imagine if f4 was a weak square, you'd be deciding whether to put the knight on f4, whether to put the bishop on f4 or something like that. But not the question with the bishop. They both will do their own tasks. So that's one of the reasons why double bishops is favored in most positions. In certain cases where the position is too closed, so the bishop's activity gets blocked by their own pawns or by opponent's pawns, then they can be not that effective, but in most of the cases they are the most effective. So now let's start looking at some positions. So this is white to play here. Now the material is equal, but as I earlier mentioned, white has double bishop advantage, and position is, we can say, fairly open. It's not, center is not that stable. White has a pawn in the center, black does not have a pawn in the center, though knight is there, but we can try to remove that. So that is also not that stable knight. So what else? Now there is one thing that you should remember, is that if you feel when you have the double bishop advantage and if the position is not too closed, do not give up your double bishop advantage. So the opponent is actually trying to play knight takes c3 and get rid of our double bishop advantage. So we should try to deal with that. Okay, so far so good. Let's play bishop b2 or let's play bishop a1. Not so easily. We should also look at the position from other perspective as well. So if we play bishop b2 or if we play bishop a1, then the problem is that the b4 pawn would fall. We wouldn't actually want that. So that's why we need to save our bishop in such a manner that this pawn can also be saved. So we have a nice and simple way to do so, that is keeping the bishop on d2, so the pawn is also defended, and we are removing the bishop with a tempo because the queen is under pressure. Now let's say if opponent plays queen g6, no problem, we can play bishop e4, creating this battery that can be dangerous for black. But what if f5? So we go back with the bishop. Did we not waste the time by doing that? Actually not. We provoked a weakness. The weakness is now this backward e6 pawn of black that white can target later on. So let's say after bishop d2, if black plays queen f6, no problem. Let's target that knight in the center with the pawn. If knight e7, bishop c3, improving the bishop's position now. So now that knight is not on d5, you can bring it back. There are plans for playing d5. Opponent moves the queen, no problem, b5. Let's start. See, this is what the bishops will do. At one moment, we are planning to play d5 to do something with this bishop. Now the queen has moved, so b5, we can do something about this bishop. So that's the coordination of the bishop. Rook b8, a5, we have plans of a6, b takes c6, and there is tremendous pressure on black's queen side. So now let's go for the next example. So this is black to play here. The material is equal, but white has 2 pawns in the center, right? White's king side is a bit weaker because of these pawns. So king is on h2, pawn on h3, no pawn on g file, so pawn would have most likely gone here. So apart from that, I also noticed that white has the double bishop advantage. I wouldn't be extremely comfortable with that because opponent can try to play e5 at some point, create the battery and then create activity. So that's not the best something that would give them some chances. So now what should we try to do? So see, when opponent has double bishops and if you feel like it can get dangerous for us, you must always ask yourself the question, can I do something to get rid of the double bishop advantage of my opponent? And at times, if you ask, you get. So in this position, we have knight b4, with which we are putting pressure on the queen and then the bishop. So the queen has to move, of course, and then it's time to get rid of the double bishop advantage of white. So that's the main point. Now that active bishop of white that could potentially create some problems for us on the king side is gone. Now what? White's king side is weak, so it's time to put pressure. It's time to play f5. Opponent tries to bring the knight into the defense. No problem at all. We are not in a rush. Improving the knight's position. Once again, we are not in a rush. Improving the rook's position. And because white's double bishop advantage is gone, that important light square bishop is gone, and the pressure that we are having on the center, the pressure that we are having on the overall white's king side, and already weak king side of white gives black a clearly better position. So that's the main point. Whenever your opponent has the double bishop advantage, always keep it in the back of the mind. Can I get rid of it? Can I get rid of it? And you might get such opportunity to do that. Alright, so now let's go for the next position. So this is white to play here, and yeah, let's try to stand a bit further. So the material is equal here. Alright, then I would say that black has pushed this f6 pawn, so because of that their king side has become a bit weaker. So we can also say that h4 has been played, so white's king side has gotten a bit weaker, but still, if I would have to compare, I would say that black's king side is a bit weak because this pawn push would weaken more important squares than with this pawn push. Yep. What else? I noticed that, by the way, you should notice this knight is being attacked. Then white has king side pawn majority of 4 versus 3. Black has 4 versus 3 majority. Right, so far so good. So now in this position, so we should remember that f6 has been played, because of which light squares of black has gotten weaker, especially this diagonal has gotten weaker. So we should try to keep that in mind, that in some cases we would be able to take advantage of that. Now, so let's play queen c4 check, improve the queen's position with a tempo, and then play. Okay, once again, if only chess was so easy, queen c4 check and we are in trouble. Bishop f7. This queen is under pressure, this knight is under pressure. So looks good, but we have to be a bit cautious about our opponent's ideas. Now, in this position, there is a really interesting idea, I see, that is improving our bishop's position with a tempo. So basically, you are bringing that bishop on the important diagonal with a tempo. And that helps us in putting some pressure on black. So now, what next? We should continue with such things, right? Improving our piece's position, if we can, with a tempo. So then we have this very nice idea, queen c4 check. So now what changed actually? We couldn't play it earlier, but why we can now? Because bishop is there on h3, so it controls this diagonal. Queen is also not there on c8, so it's not controlling the square. So that can help us. Now what should we do? Of course, we are going to improve our knight's position, the tempo. So queen was under pressure, knight was also under pressure, knight is quite active. Opponent is like, okay, I'll play queen b6. Take my rook. I take your queen. No thanks. We are not going to do that. So what we can do in this position, once again, now it's time to bring the queen on the king side. So the king side was weak. So what happened here? Bishop h3 improving the bishop's position. Queen c4 improving the queen's position. Knight e6 improving the knight's position. Queen g4 improving the queen's position. And what happens because of this? See, now this pin is not there anymore. So opponent plays this, we can just take the rook. And if opponent takes this, now queen takes e6, and then what we are able to do, we are able to get the double bishop advantage. And look at the activity of this bishop. Look at the activity of this bishop. h5. So after this, we can play h5. There can be ideas of h6. Let's say if opponent plays h6, we can even potentially have some ideas like this, because we have the the light square in double bishops. We have the light square bishop, and if opponent's light squares are weak, we can bring the king, because opponent does not have the light square bishop. So we can take advantage of those weak light squares. So here, actually, so there were certain weaknesses in opponent's position. So we improved our piece's position with our tempo to particularly put pressure on that weakness of the opponent, that was the weak king. And then what happened in this position? The pressure was so overwhelming that, and by the way, if g6, then the rook goes. So the pressure was so overwhelming, the opponent actually had to exchange their bishop with the knight, and we are getting the double bishop advantage with extremely active pieces, and potential for active king as well. So this is what you should try to do. At times, we might not have a clear way of getting the double bishop advantage, but with such relentless pressure, we can get the double bishop advantage. So what would happen is, if you don't recognize or realize the importance of double bishops, what will happen is, you will be like, okay, so what, I'm just getting the double bishop advantage, won't make much of a difference. But no, through these examples, I want to show you how important it is, and at times how difficult it can be, or how crucial and critical it can be to fight for it. So you can be like, okay, what, I improved the bishop, I improved the queen, I improved the knight, I brought the queen on the king side, so for what? For double bishops? No, but if you recognize how double bishops can actually coordinate, if you recognize how the bishop that the opponent does not have, for example here the light square bishop, that can play an important role. If you recognize that king can also play an important role in combination with the bishops endgame, then you will understand that this whole thing that we did about improving the bishop, the knight and the queen to put pressure on the king side and to get the double bishop advantage was completely worth it.